Well, that depends on what source your parents are on.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, and welcome to our Board of Commissioners meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a moment of silence. And I thank you very much for that. So let us start with the agenda. Item 3A, presentation of Service Excellent Awards, Community Correction. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Mike Cram, Community Corrections Director. I want to thank the board for allowing me on the agenda to recognize some of my staff. I just want to say that I supervise one of the best teams in the state, and I know other directors may disagree, but when I go to statewide meetings and I see what they deal with and what I don't deal with, knock on wood, I'm very grateful. But people in the audience aren't aware, Community Corrections is adult parole and probation. We're funded by the state of Oregon. The commissioners oversee our budget and approve how we spend those dollars that come down that must be spent on adult parole and probation services. So, and again, I supervise one of the best teams in the state, and I'm grateful to do that. So at this time, I'd like to recognize two of my staff for superior performance, Josh Mullins and Michael Paterzo. Josh and Mike, would you please stand? Or come on up here, please, if you wouldn't mind. Appreciate it. I'll start with Josh. I wrote some comments so that I would hit on key things and make everybody aware. Josh?
Yep.
Josh took over the sex offender caseload a while back and has done an outstanding job of implementing effective supervision strategies with that particular population. This is substantiated through my audits and evaluation process that I go over regularly with my team. Case examples, I think of an example where Josh was, one weekend was out with his family and saw an offender in violation of his supervision conditions. Josh contacted local law enforcement, followed up, made sure that individual was arrested, and uncovered a crime. So outstanding follow-up, follow-through, and public safety. I can think of instance after instance where Josh has done similar things, keeping our community safe and with aggressive enforcement, investigation, follow-up, and pursuing violations of supervision conditions. Josh is, as a former sex offender PO myself, I know the work, the stress, and I can tell you I sleep better at night knowing that Josh is responsible for this caseload. Some of the leadership Josh has demonstrated in the last year is he is on the Sex Offender Supervision Network, hosted meetings in Coos County, and followed up with Coastal Center regularly to make sure he's on top of everything. Josh has demonstrated leadership, and he does a fantastic job, and I could not be more proud of him in the work he does supervising that very difficult caseload. So I know we have an award there for Josh, and I just want to thank him and for all of his work. So.
Do you have your phone?
Where's my phone? Right there.
Right here. Let me turn it on.
I'm going to hand this to you, Josh. Isn't that cool? Thank you, Mike. Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. I'd like to ask Michael Paterzo to please come up with me. There it is. With a large increase in the domestic violence population, I asked one of my officers, I looked around, and I thought Michael Peterza was the obvious choice to take over those caseloads. We've seen a huge influx in domestic violence in our community with COVID and some of those things. So we have 3 POs doing it. Mike is the primary officer for that. I can tell you audits, evaluations, and review of my notes support that he's doing a fantastic job with this caseload. I can think of instance after instance where Mike has followed up with violations through aggressive enforcement and uncovered violations, and his ability to communicate his expectations to the people he supervises is an ability that I've seen a rare ability to present, and he's fantastic. I also at one time supervised DV caseload, so I know how tough it is. And again, I sleep better at night knowing Mike supervises these cases. Mike has a history in law enforcement. This is his 3rd discipline that he served in. Mike's a retired LAPD sergeant. He also is a retired Department of Corrections officer, and he's a probation officer for Coos County. We're grateful that Mike pursued a 3rd time in public safety. Some of the leadership Mike has demonstrated is he's on the statewide DV committee. He hosted statewide meetings. He's on the case management network for the state. And locally, he's on the SAFE board, which does a fantastic job with that. And another thing that Mike does, he stays on top of all the legislation that comes down. He knows about it before I do. So I go in and talk, hey, Mike, what's going on with this legislation? He knows, he lets me know. So he's a huge asset in this department. We're grateful to have him, and the community should be grateful to have somebody of this caliber supervising those tough domestic violence cases. And I'd just like to thank you, Mike. It was fantastic.
Very cool.
And of course, a pay raise.
Thank you to the board and everyone for this time.
On behalf of the board, I would like to thank Mike and Josh for the fine work they do. Also credit Michael Krim, the leadership of the Community Corrections Department, for the fine work you do. I consider them one of the top parole and probation offices in the state. We're very fortunate to have you all. Thank you. We're going to move ahead, skip ahead to item 5A. It's a late agenda item. Cole, I know you have something else to get to, so you can step up here. We'll dispose of this item quickly.
Morning. Our local STEP commission came up with a $24,500 to help us fix up one of our access roads down to the River Bar and the Powers Highway.
Could you tell us what STEP is?
So it's a salmon trout enhancement program based out of Coos Bay. But so this initial reimbursement agreement that me and Colton came up with, just asking for you guys to approve that, and then we can work on getting the project started after that. But
Mr. Chair, move to authorize and authorize the chair to sign the attached reimbursement agreement with Coos County STEP Commission. Second.
We have a motion and a second to, any discussion?
No, sir.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion approved.
thank you.
Thanks, Cole.
Thanks, Cole.
Let's move on then to item 3B, request approval of Fourth Amendment to the Network Provider Agreement and authorize Mike Rowley to sign on behalf of Coos Health and Wellness. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Mike Rowley, Director of Coos Health and Wellness.
Morning, Mike.
And David Giels, Behavioral Health Director, Coos Health and Wellness.
Hi, David.
So what we have here is our Fourth Amendment to Southwest Oregon IPA, which is run by Advanced Health, who is our CCO in our community care organization. This is our biggest contract, and they touch the majority of our programs. The value of this contract is up to $10.8 million a year.
Okay, Mr. Chair, move to approve Amendment 4 to the Network Provider Agreement with Southwest Oregon IPA, Inc., and authorize Department Head Mike Rowley to sign. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Michael, could you give us a brief a rundown for our benefit as well as those in the audience of what Southwest Oregon, what all they do on behalf
So
of,
with our advanced health,
say again? We have a network of providing with the Southwest Oregon IPA. What all do they do?
Southwest Oregon IPA is actually the Doctors Association
Okay.
that's local here.
All right.
And they oversee, or it's kind of combined, but Advanced Health, who is our local CCO, who is the one that does all of the work for our community around health and OHP, Oregon Health Plan.
Understand that, all right?
Which is
Further
a-
discussion.
Which currently
Davis?
about, I think the current numbers are, I think about 23,000 members of Coos County are currently covered under the advanced health.
I'd like, briefly discuss the content of the amendment, which is just adjusting the compensation schedule to account for increased costs of doing business. I think they're also splitting up how there's separate rates now for different types of reimbursement. Can you explain the?
Yeah, it depends how much detail you all want. I mean, it gets into the weeds here. The funding around healthcare is very complex, and this agreement is no exception to that. So it's really, in the end, the funding amount is essentially the same as before, although the sausage is a little bit different in its makeup in previous years. A little bit more chicken, less pork, or whatever you want to say. We've got overall a 3% cost of living increase, but then there was some decreases because certain populations are getting funded less at the state level. So we got some decreases in some of the areas, and basically it sort of worked out in the wash. I would say the one thing that's probably will have some impact is we do a number of fee-for-service billing, meaning that we get some capitated rates, but some things we get paid for what we provide. And because of our staffing shortages, we are down about 6 clinical positions. Each clinical position brings in about $200,000. So our revenue will be down unless we really address our staffing issues. Now, we don't have the cost associated with those positions either, so it's not a total net loss, but it does change our operations moving forward.
Further discussion?
No, sir.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion approved. Thank you very much. We move on to item 3C, request approval to pay invoice to Community Development Forestry Department. Morning, Lance.
Morning, sir. Lance Morgan, Coos County Forester. At the request of Commissioner Sweet, we budgeted $60,000 to help fund the code enforcement officer position in 24-25. We received invoice number 25011PL in that amount, which is over our spending authority, and we are requesting authorization to pay.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that the board authorize payment of the attached invoice in the agenda to Coos County Community Development in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Item 3D, request approval of BLM contract modification and authorized chair to sign. Sheriff? Oh, no, look who you brought with you. Hey, hey, hey. The whole crew.
Morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'll brief this one. During this last cycle of funding for the BLM position, we experienced difficulty as you recall, 2 years ago at the beginning of the budget year with staffing shortages. And one of the positions that were short was the BLM timber position. We tried to fill that hole with overtime and things of that nature, but we just couldn't fill all of it. Therefore, they what's the word that they use? They basically took that portion of that money away from that in the coming year. That is subject to change, and we can potentially regain that coming up.
Sean and the sheriff, for the benefit of everyone here, can you tell us all about what the timber patrol is and how the BLM pays us for part of the...
Absolutely. BLM funds a full-time deputy to patrol federal forest lands, specifically BLM land, of which we have a great amount inside of Coos County. They have themselves 2 positions, neither of which I believe are filled currently in Coos County. So we are meeting that need to patrol those forest lands inside of Coos County.
Thank you. I might note that the contract is still for almost $500,000. So this is very significant to us. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, move to review and authorize chair to sign modification number P00003.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Might offer that you reach out to State Forestry. I spoke with them late yesterday regarding their actions around the Elliott State Forest, and they may take an interest in paying for a forest deputy as well. I can get that contact information later today.
Please, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Good. If no further discussion, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion approved. Where are we here?
3E.
Item 3E, request award of contract for wildfire protection plan consulting services. Sheriff and Emergency Management, good morning.
Good morning. We received a grant from the Oregon State Fire Marshal to hire a consultant to update our community wildfire protection plan. And so this is the contract we would like to award to the consultant, the Ember Alliance. They were one of the 4 entities we had contacted for quotes, and they were not only the lowest, but they were the group that was most committed to offer community involvement in their process.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
So at this point forward, well, our community wildfire protection plan is from 2011. It's required to be updated every 5 years, and we have not done that. And
Math doesn't work very well on that.
yeah, no. Well, but that is part of why we received the money from the State Fire Marshal's office, and one of the key factors that happens in this plan is it's similar to the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, where it lists specific actions that we should be working on in our county to prevent forest fires and, well, fire in general, but with the current wildfire urban interface, we have continued to move into forest land, and we've not really adjusted our way of life to prevent forest fires. And so part of what this grant is doing is looking at better ways that our entities can be more prepared, better prepped. Our 4 fire departments are not able to receive funding from the Community Wildfire Defense Grant because our plan is so old.
I would note that the amount of the grant and the contract that we would have with Ember Alliance is $124,000 and change.
Yeah.
Pretty significant.
Commissioner, I think it's also important to note that over the past few years, we've had we've had at least 2 fires that I'm aware of that of concern. Last year, we had one in Bandon, a wildfire that was rapidly developing. We were, quite frankly, got lucky. And the other one was out on North Bank Lane where it burned, I think, 110 acres or 400 acres. Thank you. So this is relevant.
Good. Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept quotes for Coos Wildfire Protection Plan and award the contract to Ember Alliance for an amount not to exceed $124,292.50, with the board to sign the contract with Ember Alliance.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion.
No further.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion approved. Item 3F, request approval of a letter of commitment for multi-jurisdictional natural hazard mitigation plan update.
It's a mouthful.
Good morning.
Paraphernalia, Chip.
Good morning. Good morning. This is another one of those plans that we've actually got this one updated. This is for round 2. These plans are supposed to be updated on a 5-year circuit, and we're working diligently to make sure that happens. So we're actually working forward in time to prepare everything to get that natural hazard mitigation plan taken care of before it lapses again. We're working through DLCD, Department of Land Conservation and Development. They're, on our behalf, getting a grant to hire another contractor to do all the clerical work required to get with the numerous partners that will be involved in this plan. The current plan is over 700 pages. We expect the next iteration of the plan to be about the same. What we're seeking is a letter of confirmation from the commissioners that this is something that we want to do, that this is what we're pursuing.
Now, I understand this requires a $20,000 match. Is that coming from us?
That is the, so not necessarily a cash value. That 20,000 match can be an in-kind time, and Debbie can correct me if I'm wrong, but that match can be an in-kind, so it can be in man-hours as well.
Okay.
We also are working with Biz Oregon for a grant to cover our required cost. In the BRIC applications, which is the Building Resiliency Infrastructure, it requires a 25% match of whatever the amount ends up being that we need. And so we semi have a commitment from Biz Oregon, providing they still have money at the time this grant gets awarded. So this is to update our natural hazard mitigation plan for 2028. And I would add that it is not only all 7 of our jurisdictions, but it includes the hospitals as well to be a part of this.
If we didn't get the grant, is there a backup plan for how we provide the match?
We would use in-kind funding, which can be employee hours, anybody who's not federally funded.
Are you comfortable we have enough to handle that?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, because the other entities that participate in the grant, like the hospitals, for example, they are not federally funded. So any time that they would be putting into this would count as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I would like to point out that Debbie Mueller is a volunteer. We are getting to the point where we can pay her, but she works for us for free.
4 years.
And for 4 years.
Is that all?
And
It'll be 5 in August.
The amount, she deserves to be paid. I mean, she does so much work for emergency management. We're finally getting to the point where we found some funding to pay her part-time through a grant. But that alone, the work that she does alone, I believe would meet this match easily plus.
That's kind of what I wanted to hear. I thank you. And Debbie, thank you very.
Here, here.
Would you stand up? Because, 4 years of volunteerism weren't. All right. I'll tell you, do we have a motion?
Move to sign the letter. That is the requested action.
Which is attached right here.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion approved. Thank you very much. Let's see. That take care of,
Sober Living Center.
that all we need from all of you? I think you have something to.
Next 2 are sobering center. So
All right. Item 3G, request approval of agreement with the DAC for sobering center operation. Council.
I might suggest we do 3H. That actually deals with the jail, which is
Okay,
within
let's
the
move to
purview of the
3H
sheriff's
then.
office. Ooh. So Yeah. In regards to the sobering center, this has been a months-long effort to create a sobering center here in the county. It's a partnership between the county, City of Coos Bay, Advanced Health, a number of different nonprofits. This is a lease of jail space to ADAPT, who will be providing the sobering center. It's a lease of approximately 3,700 square feet in the Coos County Jail. It's an area formerly used for juvenile detention. As I said, the purpose of the lease is to operate a sobering center, and this lease will run for 5 years and renew annually thereafter. So what we're asking the board to do is approve of this lease that's been drafted for ADAPT to move in.
Before we proceed with the motion, Sheriff, could you discuss with us and with everyone here in attendance, how is this sobering center going to function? What services does it provide?
Okay. So one of the biggest puzzle pieces that we're missing in public safety right now is really how to handle the entirety of the issues that we're seeing. A lot of the more minor, like if you want to call it that, more minor stuff that, especially now that we're back down to 49 beds that we saw before, more minor crimes that are not being addressed at the time of occurring do involve either alcohol or drug inebriation or intoxication. The sobering center is kind of the answer to that. So it's not, for the most part, I don't foresee any situations where it's going to let people off of crimes. However, instead of bringing them to the jail, they can bring them to the sobering center and then write a report, write a citation, or bring them to the jail, book them, and bring them down to the sobering center instead of just letting people go onto the street. Additionally, and hopefully with even more benefit, is the idea of access to treatment. Sobering Center ADAPT has a long proven history. They say they have a really high reduction of recidivism through people getting in there and getting treatment. So they would not be slaves to these substances anymore and would stop committing these crimes and being nuisances to the public or criminals. So access to treatment, answering the piece about what do we do with these people, disorderly conducts, trespasses that are lower levels than what we're holding in the jail. So DUI. A place for them to go, DUII. So it's more of a, I hate the term because it's overused, but it fits. It's more of a wraparound solution for a lot of the problems we're seeing.
Thank you. It's been a long road getting here.
Oh, years.
Yes.
Years.
Well, for too long, I think law enforcement has been mental health counselors.
Yes.
We have been substance abuse counselors. We've been handling these problems that we aren't equipped to handle.
Yeah. I had a buddy that was working on this for about 6 years back when he was with Coos at Ross. You know,
Ross, yeah. He's still on it.
Yeah, it's been a long road.
Yes.
All right. Do we have
Months
a
long, I
motion?
should say years long.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the lease of jail space to ADAPT for a sobering center.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
No further.
Discussion from the audience. I should point out that the lease amount is $1,000. So is that not
That's
correct?
correct. Yes.
$1,000 per month. So it's practically a donation to provide a highly needed service here in the county.
Yes, sir.
So unless there's further questions? Okay, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
And there is a comment from Megan Sims, our treasurer, regarding which department will be responsible for collecting that rent and where those funds will be going to. I believe she's suggesting somewhere within the general fund. I don't know where beyond that.
Do we need to deal with that today?
No, we don't need to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can deal with that later.
Okay, now, council, where do you want to go?
Yeah, back to regular
Back to
programming.
G.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Item 3G, Sobering Center Operational Agreement between Coos County and ADAPT. And again, that's yours, Colton.
Thank you. Yeah, so we discussed the lease. Now we're discussing how the service of the sobering center will be funded. And the county has previously agreed to commit settlement funds that we've received from the opioid class action litigation to fund the sobering center. And so this is an agreement that memorializes that commitment. It's $300,000 in the first fiscal year of the agreement and $250,000 per year thereafter for an agreement for a 5-year agreement.
And can you tell us a little bit about ADAPT?
Yeah, ADAPT is actually, we got David Gills in here. He knows ADAPT better than anybody.
Please.
Hello all again.
Good morning again, David.
So ADAPT is an approved alcohol and drug treatment provider within the state of Oregon. They've been operating in our community for, I think about 20 years, potentially. So they do a range of treatment from inpatient to outpatient treatments. They've been operating a sobering center in Roseburg, Douglas County for about, I think, 5 years, if not longer. So they have experience doing that, which is part of the reason why we recruited them to look at doing it for our community, because they have experience, they know what they're doing, they have all the protocols and procedures in place. So it's certainly within their wheelhouse. And as was noted, the whole point of this is not only to help people get them off the street, get them sober so they're not creating havoc, but also getting them plugged into treatment resources so that we don't have this problem where it happens again the next day or the next week or the next month. So it's really a true two-pronged approach that we think will have a good relief for our community.
And I think it's certainly worth noting that ADAPT operates a sobering center over in Douglas County. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, Dave.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Nope.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion approved. And lastly then, we move on to, for at least last for the sobering center, we move on to item 3I, request approval of a sub-grant agreement with ADAPT regarding the sobering center. Again, Colton?
Yes, and this is another one for David. The legislature awarded $400,000 to support this concept of a sobering center. That was awarded to Coos Health and Wellness. And so Coos Health and Wellness, through this sub-grant agreement, is simply passing through those funds to ADAPT for their work in establishing the sobering center.
And just a reminder, for those of you that were part of that, this was funds that were really worked through a representative, Court Boyce. He was the one, I think he met with you all at one point, and you guys identified some funding needs around the sobering center, and he really pushed that through in that legislative session. The money just happened to come through Coos Health and Wellness rather than the county for some reason, but the express purpose was to support the sobering center as sort of one-time funds. Primarily, this will use to help start up the operations. The funds don't have a lot of strings attached to it, so they can be used in fairly broad ways as long as it's in terms of getting the sobering center up and running initial operations. So it's a nice boost to get us started with this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to sign and file the attached move to approve the sub-grant agreement between Coos County and ADAPT.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Nope. Hearing none. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion approved. And David, before you leave, and Colton, and you may join in this, we have a fellow that worked, I think, for a long time at Coos Health and Wellness, and now works for the Coordinated Care Organization. His name is Russ Acker. Is that right?
Ross.
Ross Acker. And I think, could you elaborate a little bit on what he's done to make this a reality?
Yeah.
I'm sure without him, we would not be
It would not have
talking.
happened. He started the effort around this probably 10 years ago.
At least.
And he met with a lot of the local law enforcement leadership at one point, and everybody identified clearly that there was this need for this sobering center. And so I think this has been, really his baby. And he's held true to that vision, even though for a lot of years there was no funding available. So really what's happened regularly is because of the opioid funding and because of this additional funding, suddenly we had the resources to be able to pull this off. But again, he really was the one that held steady. And again, really it was really law enforcement, particularly the sheriff's office, the city of Coos Bay Police Department. Some of those were consistently advocating for this as an approach. So yes, he really deserves a lot of the credit in making this happen today.
Thank you for that. And with that, we now have, or soon will have, a sobering center.
We will, I'm sure there will be a grand opening. They do have some work around the jail to get the space ready, but we will probably some announcement will go out, and you all will certainly be invited to kind of tour everything and get a sense of what it's like before we get up and running.
And I think James has a comment. James, did you want to say something?
Yes.
Get up here.
Jim Bennett, Bandon. It seems to me Trump put a freeze on funding for all the grant money and the administrative state that's been driving our bus. And I know that's on a federal level, not the county level. I'm aware of that. I just had a question. What role does Eco Health Alliance play in our administrative bureaucratic food chain? In other words, is money funded through Eco Health Alliance?
David, you'd know about that if anyone.
I have no awareness of that organization at all.
So I don't think that any monies from them are involved.
Okay.
In any of our operations.
Okay.
To my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
And to make it clear, the money, most of the money, the sobering center, comes from a settlement of a lawsuit with the pharmacy companies that provided opioids that have created such a big problem. That money has gone to the county, and the county has dedicated a large part of that money to this sobering center. So often you have someone that is highly intoxicated. They don't belong in the jail. They don't belong in the hospital. Now we have a place for it. This is a nice step forward. And it's taken a lot of work and a lot of cooperation. I'm proud of the role the county's been able to play. Thank you. David. Thank you, David. Item 3J, request approval to pay the Association of Oregon County dues. This is an annual fee we pay. It comes out of economic development funds we get from the state lottery. This is specifically the type of thing they can be used for. There are not a lot of other uses that are allowed. The amount is $36,156.41. I can tell you a little bit about the importance, I think, of the Association of Oregon Counties. And right up front, our insurance, you have to be a member of the Association of Oregon Counties for much of our insurance. It's specifically designed to meet the needs of counties and cities, good coverage. A lot of the other things that AOC does for us, and we're all a part of that. Prior to and during legislative sessions, there's a lot of legislation that's proposed that could be very helpful to the counties and the cities or very harmful. And it's through AOC that the counties, all the counties in the state come together to review that legislation and either come down in support of it or against it or neutral. And the same with the cities. It's very important. It's the one way that we can all keep abreast of what's going on within the Oregon legislature that's either pro or con the well-being of our county. That's what this $36,000 goes to. There's one other thing. A small amount of it goes to an association of counties called the County Forest Trust Land County. This is a group of 15 counties who turned over lands that they had taken back for non-payment of taxes, timberlands, during the late 30s and early 40s. And the state manages those lands. We don't think they always manage them in our best interest. So we have an association of these counties to help improve on that. So a small part, $1,200 of this goes to that. So with that, motion.
Chair, move to approve and pay AOC dues in the amount of $36,156.41. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm a little bit conflicted on this in one regard and not in the other. There is no conflict, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the value that AOC delivers to Coos County vis-a-vis the access to city-county insurance, which is obviously the most cost-effective insurance provider that we can access for our needs. The problem that I have is that actually, Commissioner Sweet, you said that all Oregon counties are represented. That's actually not accurate. The ones who are members of AOC are represented. The dynamic that occurs in AOC in terms of legislative advocacy is a little bit concerning to me, because the fact of the matter is that AOC does not advocate for or against any legislation unless there is unanimous consent among the counties present to vote during that legislative committee session. So, in effect, what happens is the 30 red counties are consistently overruled by the 6 blue counties in matters that are of great significance and import to those 30 counties. So consequently, there are many legislative interests that Coos County would have, legislative advocacies that would serve our citizens very well. And I'm not talking about just one segment of our community, I'm talking about all of us, that are never advocated for or against. And so we don't receive that very effective and powerful party in our corner serving our needs. So that's of great concern to me. I don't think that mitigates the full value of the Association of Oregon Counties to Coos County, but it is a concern, and I would be remiss not to articulate it. That's all.
Thank you. I'd like to respond. Are you sure that every decision has to be a unanimous decision?
Yes, sir. In terms of legislative advocacy, yeah. That's been my experience.
Well, I'd like to check on that, and we'll bring this back and make sure that we're good. But I'm ready to go ahead with this.
Yeah. Well,
do you have?
Yeah. So, Association of Counties is, all counties are included in it. So that results in a majority of rural counties being represented. I think more so it's the failure to attend and to participate that results in the outcomes than it is the demographics of the state. If we don't participate, we're obviously going to lose out. To that effect, because it comes up in this context, I'll bring it up. Normally I wouldn't. My predecessor listed himself as being on the Public Safety Steering Committee during the run. He'd been there for quite a while listed. When I talked to the Association of Counties, they hadn't seen him in 5 years. If we don't participate, we lose. So I think the fault lays more on ourselves than it does on the system.
I thank you for that. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am. You have to come forward, give your name.
Okay, sure. It's just a quick question. I don't know.
Wait until you get up here.
Okay. It's a quick question. I don't know if
Your
it
name,
matters.
please.
Margaret
Your home address.
Frontella,
And where do you live?
North Bend.
Thank you.
When you speak of insurance, are you talking about liability insurance for
Yes.
suing? Okay,
For the
that's
county.
okay.
It covers, yeah.
That's good. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we have that.
With this.
Very importantly.
So, questions? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion approved. Now, item 3K. I suspect we're going to want to have a lot of input on this. And we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes. We're not going to be here until the middle of the afternoon hearing the same thing over and over and over again. So I would encourage, and we're going to have 5 people that get to speak for 3 minutes each in favor of, a maximum of 3 minutes, in favor of the proclamation, and 5 opposed. So if you wouldn't mind, try to figure out in this next 10 minutes who those 5 will be. If you don't, I'll pick them and no telling who I'll pick. Susan.
Can you explain what the proclamation is first?
Can I introduce it?
Yes,
And
let's
then
do that.
we'll hold on the motion until after the introduction.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
Good suggestion. So
All right,
please,
thank
would
you.
you introduce it?
So item 3K is regarding proclamation regarding ICE detainer requests. State law prohibits local jurisdictions from honoring ICE detainer requests, and I'll add, unless there is a court order pertaining to that particular detainer request. But this prohibition is at odds with federal law, which governs immigration. State law does not govern immigration. The board needs to provide constitutionally consistent guidance to the sheriff in relation to these ICE detainer requests via proclamation. And if I could clarify, Mr. Chair, a few points on this before we break.
Surely.
The first is that this proclamation doesn't have any actual legal weight because, number one, the Board of Commissioners does not direct the sheriff in anything. The sheriff is elected by the people. He's accountable to the people. The only matters over which the board has jurisdiction or influence regarding the sheriff is, frankly, his budget. Although we do work together with him agreeably and constructively. The second point that I want to make is that this proclamation is merely an expression of what we believe the proper application of the law should be. And it is my belief that that somebody who is in police custody because of the commission of a crime is therefore subjected themselves to the legal ramifications of that crime commission. So we're not talking about sending the sheriff out to go and look for people who we think shouldn't be here. That's not the objective at all. The objective is that when there is a criminal in the custody of the sheriff and ICE issues a detainer request for him to hold that individual after his regular release, that we should honor that. The sheriff cannot do that currently according to state law. So I want to make that really, really clear that we understand what this is for, what it does, what it doesn't do, and what it can't do, so that we can save a whole bunch of conversation over topics that are irrelevant. So Anyway, that's all I wanted to introduce. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing here. I had overlooked one agenda item, is what we call a late agenda item. These are reserved for things that are not going to be controversial and matters that need to be dealt with sooner rather than later.
Mr. Chair, move to hear the late agenda item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is just to hear it, and those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Now, this late agenda item comes from our road department, and I'll let our roadmaster and public works director, Paul, tell us what the need is here.
And Paul's going, whew, I'm glad I didn't have to wait.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't grab this earlier. I got one, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing this. So we have a 2000 Kenworth dump truck. The engine went out in it recently. We looked through and requested quotes from multiple companies. We received 3, ranging from $16,938.12 up to $29,447.86. Requesting the board to approve repairing this dump truck with an engine rebuild to Gold Coast Truck Shop over in Coos Bay. They were the lowest quoter at $16,938.12. But I am requesting the board to approve and not to exceed up to $27,000 and authorize myself, the department head, to sign the estimate from Gold Coast. The reason why I'm asking for an additional almost $10,000 is because there's some unknowns until they tear the engine down to figure out exactly what it needs. For instance, if the crank cannot be reground and we have to replace it, that's an additional $7,000 just for that one item. We're hopeful that it can be reground. Normally they can. So hopefully we will not get to the 27, but just in case.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, move to approve repair of the dump truck number 137, not to exceed $27,000, and authorize department head to sign estimate number 4500.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Nope. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, you got your truck repaired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Paul.
right. So I think we need to have a little organization, perhaps. So I would suggest that those who are in favor of the proclamation go to this side of the room. Those who are opposed to the proclamation go to this side of the room. And you're going to have approximately 10 minutes to come up with 5 people to represent what your concerns are.
It's very divisive, John. Why do we need to physically?
You got to be able to communicate with those that are for and those against, and if you're in mass, who's going to know what? It'll be.
What about those online?
I think so. I'll see you too. I'm going to have a few people right off the bat, and the sheriff will be one, and you'll be there, and the district attorney is here. She would. You always are. Well, I gotta go tell the sheriff he's gonna come up.
That's sushi.
take your seats. We're going to reconvene.
Open with a motion because of the discussion.
No, I'll take all right, so I'm going to have 3-4 people testify first. It will be the sheriff, the district attorney, county council. I guess that's just 3. Pardon me?
Are we going to open it with a motion?
Wait till I get the rules done.
Thank you, sir.
And after that, we're going to flip a coin, and we decide whether someone from the pro side or someone from the anti side goes first, and we'll alternate pro, anti-pro. 3 minutes each. County council will be keeping track of the time.
And then the other side gets the ball in the second half, is that?
Pardon me?
It's gone?
Any questions? Vanessa?
I just wanted to let you know that this is a room here full, but the people on that board, unless we know who they are to contact them to be a part of this, there's no free speech here. So I'm just letting you know that. The people that are on the...
Thank you for your input very much. Yes, ma'am.
Was the language that you read, how many sentences, what is this motion? Because you started speaking.
So what I was referring to was just...
We'll have the entire proclamation read by
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Taylor. So, would you start, please, with your motion and the reading of the proclamation?
Yes, sir. I move to discuss the proclamation regarding ICE detainer requests, and following a second, I will read the text.
Do you have a second?
Oh, second.
Okay. A motion and the second to proceed with these
Very good.
discussions. And so with that, would you please vote? Aye. Aye.
No, no vote, no vote.
Only with the process.
We're just opening to discussion right now with the motions, so there's no vote required.
And I don't want us to vote. Just go ahead, say yes, and then you can start reading that. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Whereas, and I'll read the title, Proclamation by the Coos County Board of Commissioners regarding Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detainer Requests. Whereas the Coos County Board of Commissioners recognizes the predominance of federal law over state law as established by the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, and whereas U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement issues detainers as a crucial component of federal immigration enforcement aimed at protecting public safety by ensuring that individuals who may pose a risk to our community are not released into society without due consideration of their immigration status. And whereas these ICE detainers are requests for cooperation from local law enforcement agencies to hold individuals for a limited period after they would otherwise be released, providing ICE the opportunity to assume custody for the purpose of determining the individual's removability under federal immigration law. And whereas despite state laws that may prohibit or limit cooperation with ICE detainer requests, the Coos County Board of Commissioners acknowledges that enforcement of immigration laws falls under federal jurisdiction, and local non-compliance with these federal requests can undermine national security, public safety, and the rule of law. And whereas the board believes that honoring ICE detainer requests supports the mission of law enforcement to protect all residents, regardless of their immigration status, by ensuring that those who have committed crimes do not remain at large to potentially reoffend. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Coos County Board of Commissioners,
Support for ICE detainers. The Coos County Board of Commissioners hereby declares its support for honoring ICE detainer requests, recognizing the legal and moral duty to cooperate with federal law enforcement for the sake of public safety and national security. Affirmation of federal law. This board affirms the supremacy of federal law over conflicting state statutes, thereby stating our support for federal directives concerning immigration enforcement where they conflict with state law, and commitment to community safety. We commit to working in partnership with all levels of law enforcement to ensure that our community remains safe, acknowledging that immigration enforcement is an integral part of this safety. And finally, legal and ethical stand. By standing in support of ICE detainers, the Coos County Board of Commissioners asserts that it is both legally justified and ethically imperative to participate in federal efforts to uphold immigration law. This proclamation is made and entered into the records of the Coos County Board of Commissioners this third day of February 2025, and it will be the fourth day, obviously. So that is the proclamation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, do you have any comments you would like to make? And you have more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, I would defer to Commissioner Farmer to open the comments from the dais.
Sure. So obviously, we've had a lot of outreach about this one. I've gone through the proclamation, and ahead of that, I've been in contact with ICE to get some information from them, Department of Homeland Security. Talked with a friend that worked in intelligence to get some information, and other state agencies, in part because we're also, thank you, John, I doped my pocket.
You're littering up here.
I am. Because of the crossover with the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation, I've been in contact with the FBI for some information as well. Am I not speaking loud enough? I see your hand. Yep. Okay. Is this better? Yep. All righty, we got her. So ahead of those things, I checked in with those agencies. Personal opinions first. I believe we do need to reform and improve our immigration system. It is not expedient enough. I don't think it is being effective in assessing individuals, and the security aspect is a concern to me. Based on information, just talking with some of these agencies, we're aware through Homeland Security that we have Sinaloa in our community. We have MS-13.
Yes.
And talking with a friend that worked in intelligence and private contracting with the military, I value his opinion and his information. He figured out of 10 folks, you've got 5 folks that are just legitimately trying to live their lives and better their lives. 3 out of 10, he figured, coming across are probably terrorists.
Yes.
And 2 out of 10 are cartel, which the president has designated as terrorist organizations, foreign terrorist organizations, although for folks' educational purposes, that designation was the allowance to designate. There are no specific cartels designated foreign terrorist organizations at this time. I've been checking the State Department's website every day so that we can see when they are. It's not happened yet. So, that aside, specific to the proclamation, it is going to be interpretation by the community is a big concern of mine. Overstepping as a perception is a concern of mine, because we can say we support this thing. My concern is that this will confuse the community, one, into believing we're overstepping the sheriff's authority, because it is his authority how the jail is run and how law enforcement is run in our community. That is not our realm, and as I would expect the state to stay out of our business, I would prefer we stay out of the sheriff's business to the extent possible. There's a factor in talking with the sheriff and some local attorneys that if we do go into the realm of violating state law, and I'll get into the federal aspect of that in a minute, but if we do go into the process of violating state law, we can jeopardize our officers' DPSST certifications. Those are certifications they have to be police officers in Oregon. So regardless of what the feds say about what they want, we jeopardize the employment of our officers by doing this action, if this were to occur. And by consequence, if we have no lawfully operating officers, we have no jail whatsoever, and we have a much larger problem on our hands. If you look at the jail roster, these are not folks you want in the community. And to that effect, if ICE starts detaining folks, I'm not willing to exchange somebody that's here working on a farm for a rapist. That is a deal breaker. And we don't have capacity right now. So if we were to have capacity, if the feds want to fund us $800,000 to open an additional pod and build capacity, we might have a different discussion, but at this time, that is not a viable option. We have, through the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation, I believe we're going to have the judicial aspect covered. If we're only considering individuals who are criminals as our primary priority, that is going to resolve itself through the Foreign Terrorist Organization, which I am happy to do a declaration of support of, because cartels operating in our community is a bit terrifying, and our community has suffered with drugs long enough. We have to get those folks out of here, and I'm not particular on how we move out cartel members. Talking with ICE, the individual I spoke to, he was a mumbler. I think it was McEwen. Folks that wondered, mumbling is a pet peeve. He indicated they're understaffed. They would prefer we're only holding criminals because they don't have the personnel to deal with it if we expand out of that realm anyway. And at that point, if we're talking about holding individuals, we're talking about taking up capacity with no point of known resolution because ICE can't keep up. Homeland Security, wasn't sure who's going to be deputized, who's not. There's a lot of uncertainty around that right now. That creates another logistical burden. And with aspects, even just looking at it as recognizing the supremacy of the federal government. 2014, there was a U.S. District Court opinion, a federal court, that detention without a designated crime, without having an authorization signed by a judge, is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And whether you agree with that or not, that is the federal opinion from a U.S. court. So that outlines the problems in that regard. Points I see for confusion around the item. We have who may pose a risk. That's not an individual who's been charged with anything. That's not an individual who's been detained for any reason. That says may. That is hypothetical. That is not after a suspected crime has been committed. Obviously, if we're going to detain folks, we don't have the space or the money. The state won on the federal aspect in 2014. It hasn't been successfully challenged yet at the federal level. Let's see. Obviously, as noted by Rod, this has no legal weight. So the only function I see in this is that it would confuse citizenry, make them wonder why the sheriff's not doing a thing we never had the authorization to suggest, and it just has no function other than gesture. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. And Commissioner Taylor.
All right, so this issue of illegal immigration is clearly really a very sensitive topic to many, and I'm very concerned about the misunderstanding, the breadth of the misunderstanding over what this proclamation is about. As I said before the break, the intention behind this proclamation is to say that we do not, we support our sheriff's freedom and ability as our chief law enforcement officer in this county. We support his ability to honor a request to detain a criminal who is in custody. And this would exactly be relatable to the cartel members that Commissioner Farmer mentioned. That would be of primary significance. Again, the sheriff has no desire, no authority, no plans, and nobody wants him to go out into our community and look for people who he thinks are not here legally. That's not what this is about at all. This is people who are already held in the jail, who have a known criminal history, and that is why ICE has issued a detainer request for them. So that's what this is relevant to. There is no executable function in this proclamation. Zero. All it is a statement of positional support. We do not support the idea that criminals who are in the country illegally should be released from our jail when they have, when they've completed whatever process would otherwise confer their release. There are a number of examples of that. Number one, if somebody is held in the jail and unable to find a public defender within a very short amount of time, that individual has to be released. If we don't have capacity for that individual, if the crime that they were brought into jail for is of a lesser degree than somebody else who's in there, well, the sheriff and the district attorney have a conversation, I believe, every morning to talk about who they need to let go and who they need to hold. It's frequently, if not every morning. And that's a travesty. It wouldn't be that way if we still had our second pod open, but that's the reality. So those individuals could be subject to release back into the community, even if they are the subject of an ICE detainer request under current state law. And I think that the state law is erroneous, and my personal view is the state law is going to hit a wall. I believe that it's going to face a legal challenge, and it's going to be struck down, and we're going to find that the supremacy clause does in fact apply to this situation, and that our sheriff will then be required to honor ICE detainer requests. Finally, I want to say that the last thing in my mind or intention regarding this would be to put our sheriff in an awkward position to have the public perception that the Board of Commissioners is requiring him to do something. That concept would be based on a gross misunderstanding of the structure of county government and the current legal situation that he finds himself in. I am in no way putting any pressure on the sheriff to honor those ICE detainer requests in violation of state law. I wouldn't want him to do that. I'm not advocating for that. And I'm not advocating for any actions at the county level that would deprive us of any state programmatic monies that are utilized for the budget of this county. So this proclamation as it stands does not risk any of that. And it's merely a statement of position, what we think should be happening. And frankly, I think that when the state law is overturned, which I believe it will be, that it will have been beneficial for Coos County to be on the leading edge of this curve. So that's what I have to say at this time.
Thank you very much. Then next, I'd like to call upon the sheriff. Come up. And the district attorney to come up, give us some input. Morning again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'll try to be brief. I know we have a lot of people that want to talk. I think what I'd like to do is kind of give a bit of a background, what the laws are, the 181 Alpha. Just
Get closer to the mic.
Oh, thank you. Give a bit of a background, a quick background on what the laws are in the state, at least. The 181 Alpha, 823, 829 is the ORS's, what constitutes violating those laws, and then kind of what I still have authority to do based on that, or what we can do. A couple quick notes. You're absolutely correct, Commissioner Taylor. The board does support me in everything, and I really appreciate the relationship we have, so thank you. I do see this as kind of, it's actually kind of a beneficial in some ways because we're getting in front of this. It's a conversation that's being had nationwide, and I'm glad that we're talking about it. So that part's great. To another your points, 15 so far, 15 this year releases from overcrowding this calendar year, 3.5 days. So we are definitely full. So the background, basically we are sworn to uphold laws, all laws. And in this case, there is a definite disparity between what the state says and what the federal government wants. Puts us in an untenable and unfortunate position. I do plan on enforcing laws, all of them, and including both of these. There are ways that we can still work with immigration inside the bounds of the laws, and I'll go over those towards the end here. Of course, we've got to be fair and impartial, but there's always a way. So sanctuary laws were established in 1987. A big point that is important is that those laws were challenged at the federal level, and the federal courts did actually maintain the state sanctuary law at one point. I'm not sure when that was. I was trying to look it up. I imagine that'll change here in the near future because of current administration. So what do the state laws say? There's 4 statutes that specifically cover it. 2 of them say that if basically what they are is no law enforcement official can give information to ICE about somebody, whether it's requested or offered. So basically I can't call them up and say, hey, Joe Snuffy out on Fish Trap Road is an illegal immigrant and he's living there. Or if they call and say, hey, do you know anything about Joe Snuffy where he lives? The state law prohibits that. Same thing with resources. If they're coming down here and saying we're doing an ICE raid, I can't say take my contacts room, according to state law. There is one, I got some questions about whether or not we'd be allowed to be deputized by ICE immigration. There is actually one of the statutes specifically says that is prohibited as well. We have something called task force officers. We have one for the marshals where it grants us some federal authority, but this is the only place where it's actually prohibited by law. And 2 of the 4 statutes do specifically say that somebody that had information and that information was given, they have recourse to civil lawsuits. So they would sue and they would win. So that's kind of what violates these state laws. Real nutshell, like I said, it's 4 statutes, but and I also am not advocating for or against this proclamation. What I'd like to do is say what some of the potential repercussions, and Commissioner Farmer, you kind of stole some of my thunder here.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's all right. What some of those potential repercussions could be for the county and for the sheriff's office, just as a planning tool. Just what I was thinking. 2 are based on lawsuits, 1 from the state, injunctions, stop it, and fines. And the second is, like those 2 statutes say, is the lawsuits that could come. Something that's important to consider, though, Colton brought up, and sorry if I'm stealing your thunder.
You sure are.
It's okay to reinforce this.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a privilege of elected office.
Yeah.
Trickle down.
Something important to consider is it is breaking the law if I did that. I would probably be official misconduct, and now I'm stealing the DA's thunder. Official misconduct, which is a misdemeanor, I believe. And we wouldn't be covered by CIS if we were given fines or lawsuits as the statutes specify. We would come out of pocket for all of it. We're not covered under color of law for breaking it. 1 is prosecution, official misconduct for any officer that does it. And then, Commissioner, you mentioned the loss of certification. Not only are we given the authority, the certification through DPSST through the state, something important to consider. I'm a sheriff. I'm paid for by the county. You can say we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway and screw the state certifications, but it wouldn't work. Not only could the state agency come down and say, well, you're guilty of kidnapping now because you don't have the authority to pick up that person and bring him to jail, but state courts could say we're not prosecuting your stuff if you're not certified. So we've completely lost our ability to prosecute these cases, or any cases, if we lose our certifications. Personal opinion, as a bit of an aside, I think that this is going to come to a head anyway. I think the federal government is going to make a point of making an example of either a big city or the state itself. I think there's going to be some financial repercussions through loss of federal funding. My concern is that the state is going to try to do the same thing with the county that violates too much. To your point, what would happen if we did that and the state came down and said, you lost your certification, you're getting fined? We could take it to the Supreme Court. About 2% of cases are heard, and it would take years. I don't know what would happen in the interim. So what can I do and what will I do? And this is based on law. There is a disconnect, and this is kind of hard for most people that aren't in the life. There is detainer. It's an administrative warrant, they call it, for detainers, where basically they're going out and picking up people that have not committed crimes, and that is not signed by a judge. A lot of discussion. I don't know why they don't just have judges sign them, because a judge can sign, a federal judge can sign an actual warrant for people being here illegally, but they never do for some reason. A federal warrant, if they had a warrant, not a detainer warrant, an administrative warrant, that I would hold on that all day long. I'd have no problem with that. So that's one thing I can do, is if they come down and say, hey, we got this detainer for this guy, I can't help you. However, if you get a federal warrant, I can. That's one thing. Another thing is I can release information to ICE that is otherwise available to the public. That's the catchphrase. So if somebody's arrested, you're absolutely right. If somebody's arrested for any crime, we'll take them. We're going to treat them just like every other crime. We're going to hold them. We're waiting prosecution and arraignment. Totally agree with you on that one. However, in Coos County, we haven't seen a lot. Over the last 2 years, Sergeant Miller over in Coquille PD and I, we did arrest a couple of MS-13 people. They're here to try to make a life. Super nice people, actually. We do have cartels here, and I'll be interested to see how the terrorist laws affect that. We don't know exactly what kind of authority we're going to be given over terrorists. If it's something I can do, I'm absolutely going to do it. You know, I hate drugs. I fight them as much as I can. And I guess lastly, from what I hear, like I said, we haven't seen it much. I've never gotten a request from ICE for information. I think the jail might have, but from what I hear, ICE kind of got the hint in Oregon and had a conference call with the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police. From what I understand, that ICE kind of understands what's going on, and they don't make those requests much anymore. So, no, I don't think it's going to be a real issue anyway. Like I said, we're going to follow laws. There are ways that I can still support the mission within the bounds of the laws. And if it's a crime, we will always arrest on and refer for prosecution. That's what I got.
Thank you, Sheriff. District Attorney.
Good morning. I agree with what the sheriff's saying. I, too, have sworn an oath very recently again when I just became the district attorney to follow the law, and that includes following the state law. And as the sheriff said, there are certain state laws that if people were to, and I know that Commissioner Taylor's not saying that we can do this, but were they to do it, they could be prosecuted. They could be personally sued. They would not have immunity. The county could potentially be sued, and I'm sure county council is going to get into that. But that I feel the perception of this proclamation might pit the community against law enforcement. And I don't think that's the intent, but I worry that if we're saying, hey, we don't like the law, we still have to follow the law. And our entire existence is to put criminals away. We're a team. So they're out investigating the law. We're trying to prosecute people that need to be prosecuted. And I hold very firmly to that. Now, whether the state ever changes the sanctuary law and says, hey, once these people are prosecuted, can we maybe notify the feds that we have these people in custody? If that change happens, that's one thing. But right now, we have to follow the law. And it concerns me when we say that following state law undermines national security, because my very being is trying to keep this community safe. And I think saying that, I'm trying to keep us safe by following state law, by following federal law, and I just feel like that statement kind of takes away from what we're trying to do by keeping the community safe under the bounds of the law. And I fear people not understanding what that means, that we have to follow this law at this point. But I also understand the notion that we want to say, like, maybe this isn't a great idea, but it's what the law is, and we have to follow the law.
Thank you. And County Council.
let's see if I can come up with some fresh ideas that already haven't been covered by, yeah.
If not, do what you say, what you think you need to say.
Oh, sure. Well, no, I have some comments. So I guess I would just say, you know, there's a process for challenging laws that we think are out of line, and that's the courts, right? I mean, you would go to a court of law to adjudicate whether or not a particular law is valid, and I think in this situation, two things could potentially happen, right? I mean, the federal government may come along and challenge these sanctuary laws under, you know, a federal preemption doctrine. There could also be some challenge from law enforcement agencies. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be top down from the federal government. It could be a group of plaintiffs that challenge the validity of these statutes. You know, I will say that immigration law is federal subject matter, and you know, the whole principle of sanctuary laws is a bit suspect that you know, state governments or local governments, for that matter, can openly defy you know, jurisdiction of you know, higher government. But ultimately, again, I think it comes down to following the laws until they've been determined to be unlawful. That's the position we're in. We have to comply with both federal and state law. In terms of, I mean, I just want people to be aware that were we to defy state law, we'd be inviting a whole host of challenges. One possible challenge would be from the state seeking injunctive relief only. That would not be covered by our CIS policy because there's no damages, just injunctive relief to get us to follow ORS 181A. So we'd have to pay for that out of pocket. Another challenge would be under these very statutes, they create a private right of action for people who whose rights have been infringed. And so we could see these individuals actually suing the county. And because we would be openly violating a state law, that would also be excluded from our CIS insurance policy, and we'd be on the hook for potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So I just want people to be aware that those are the consequences, as well as the DPSST aspect. I hadn't considered that. Now I will say, you know, it's been acknowledged that this is more of a policy statement than a directive to the sheriff. And it's not actually a requirement to break the law. But I still think that issuing this proclamation will cause confusion in individuals. I mean, it states in certain points that we have a legal duty to cooperate with federal law enforcement, and that would be legally justified to participate in federal efforts to uphold immigration law. I think, on the contrary, we have a legal duty not to cooperate with federal law under state law until that state law is struck down, if and until. And the same goes for what we'd not be legally justified to work with federal efforts right now unless and until state sanctuary law is removed. So I just would be concerned that people who are not as familiar with the structure of the county government, they would see this proclamation and expect something from the sheriff that he's not obligated and frankly not allowed to deliver.
Okay, thank you. And I think with that, we'll start with our public comment. Danessa, I have a question for you. It appears as though John Brimhall is named twice.
Oh, cross him off.
Who do you want to replace him with?
That'll be Nancy.
Say again?
It'll be Nancy.
Say again?
Nancy.
Nancy? All right. All right, who has a coin? We're going to flip to see who gets to start first. Anyone have a coin in their pocket? I'll take a 5. Come on, Tim. Get up here.
I'll bail you guys out.
Okay.
No, you're going to flip it. Oh, I'm going to flip it. Okay. This isn't. I can't catch it. It's going to hit the dirt.
Heads.
What do we got?
What do we got? Heads it is?
Now they can't see it.
We'll choose to go first or second.
I'll be first.
Thank you. And you have 3 minutes. And county council will be timing them. Use the 3 minutes wisely. Don't spend it walking up here and getting organized.
Hi. Chair,
Hi.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I do want to point out something that you actually mentioned a few minutes ago, that we do have online attendees of this meeting. I feel like we do need to at least attempt to provide some opportunity for them to weigh in.
Yep.
Okay.
We got Rob Taylor up there with his hand raised. So.
Okay, as long as we're providing opportunity for people to participate electronically.
I wanted to let you know the comment that I got from one of the people that is having a hard time talking, but he said, well, the format is blank. The people have the right to petition their government, and not all issues are equal in a makeup 5 versus 5. That's what he put.
So
let's proceed with your.
My plan.
Jeff, you're going to say that we're going to proceed. This is the process we're using today. John, you're muted. Okay. County Council, you have some more comments, and then we're going to proceed. And this is the process we're going to use today. If you want to use your time up complaining about the process, that's fine. But you're not going to be able to make your point regarding the proclamation. So, County Council, and then Danessa.
Sure, and again, I'm sorry for jumping in here. I just would agree with you there, Chair, that we do have the ability to lay out the process. This is a Board of Commissioners meeting. You can lay out the process for public input. State law really only requires public attendance. So that's, the threshold there, but we can certainly provide opportunities for input. My only concern is that if we're going to provide opportunities for public testimony, that we make that available to people in electronic format since they're here. So if people have that opportunity, we're good. I wonder if we might open it up after these individuals have spoken to anybody else online who might want to chime in.
Let me think about that. We also need to get out of here.
Understood.
And so our process may not be perfect, but it is the process that we are going to be using today unless I change my mind here in the next few minutes.
Okay.
So with that, Danessa, would you please commence?
Yes, my name is Danessa Rains. I'm from Myrtle Point, Oregon. I am a U.S. citizen, and I am a taxpayer. And I'm glad you guys did the Pledge of Allegiance before this whole thing started. If you'll notice, that flag is taller than that flag there. And we didn't even talk about the statutes from the state, the Fed, and I'd like to read it from Tom Holman. He's the border czar. He says, from New York to Massachusetts to California, a bunch of politicians are about to become felons. And if not going to be glorious to watch, all the anti-American garbage gets arrested. Review Title 8, USC 1324. It is a felony to harbor illegal aliens. I pledge allegiance to the flag. We're not following our Constitution. If our sheriff is constitutional sheriff, he would follow that first, because we know that these laws that have been in place have been in a supermajority. Also, I'm afraid for our sheriff. They're going to set an example. The feds are going to set an example. And what if our sheriff does become a felon? Is it going to be covered by our insurance? For him if he lets a person that was in jail a couple extra days and he let him out. I don't know. But I don't think we should be using this to leverage for more pods from the federal government, that if we don't get money from the federal government, we're not going to help the ICE. You can tell that everything's kind of sewed up in the state of Oregon. You just voted on the county association that helps you with your insurance, and now we find that if they're not certified from the state, all these laws have been put in there for a reason, to become a sanctuary state. And we need, that's going to get taken care of. A couple examples or a good hanging, things will change. So first of all, I am for the proclamation. I think we need to say it as citizens in this area that we support this. The sheriff, and you plainly say the sheriff is an elected official and he can take care of what he deems is right. It is on him if he violates the U.S. Constitution, and also what I just told you, what the czar said, it's on him. Federal funds, oh boy, once that gets yanked, everyone's going to hurt. Everyone in this state. And that means it's going to come back on the taxpayers, because there's a supermajority right now and they can raise our taxes without any vote. So if you don't think you're captive, you are. And if we don't want to get illegals out, then shame on you.
Thank you.
Who are you going to hang?
Now, just a minute, hang on here. We're going to be polite. Hang on. We're going to be polite. We're not going to applaud. We're not going to jeer. And if you do, you're going to be asked to leave. Got it? Now, Rod, you started to say something just as Danessa started to say something. And, all right.
Let it go.
All right, thank you. So let's move to the opponents of the proclamation. And the first on the list is Laura Adera.
Good afternoon. My name is Nora Dara. I too am a tax-paying citizen. And I would like to thank the Board of Commissions for the opportunity to speak. I like to speak on the personal level because I felt compelled after speaking to my Hispanic community. A lot of them are afraid to come forward and speak. They're afraid to show themselves. And so, in speaking in their behalf and meeting them through my religious community and my family members, I ask that in making this decision whether to cooperate with the federal government and ICE, that you would consider some important facts, such as the Hispanic community within our area have positively contributed in our local community in many ways. They're hardworking tax and Social Security paying individuals who, once they have made it to their retirement age, will not have the ability to collect any Social Security and do not have the ability to receive any tax refunds. Those that I speak of are here only to work hard for their children and for their family members, such as our ancestors have done for decades. I don't think that Trump's federal mandate is the most appropriate solution for the immigration issues. We need to take into consideration that it's a very small percentage that are here not to do the right thing, and those individuals should not have the privilege to partake in the American dream. We shouldn't punish the individuals who have come here in hopes for a better life. Instead, we need to help those individuals in giving them the opportunity and help to properly put everything together so they may continue to be a positive, productive part of all our American dreams. I like to end with a quote from James Martin. What Jesus never said. Feed the hungry only if they have papers. Clothe the naked only if they're from our country. Welcome the stranger only if they're zero risk. Help the poor only if it's convenient. And love your neighbor only if they look like you. Thank you.
And next, we'll call on Rob Taylor, attending virtually.
Hello, it's Rob Taylor from Bandon, Oregon. And I have to remind the commissioners that in 2015, Don, you were sitting on the board, the board heard the Second Amendment preservation ordinance and then rejected it on the same concerns that were put forth to the board by the district attorney at that time, by the sheriff at that time, and by several other people. And you did not pass that ordinance. That board did not pass it. And we went to the people. We filed an initiative, and the Second Amendment preservation ordinance, which goes completely against state and federal regulations, passed successfully here in Coos County and is still on the books without any of the challenges or the problems that they said were going to occur with that law passing. Now, what we're talking about today is a proclamation. I mean, in Coos Bay, they have a flag policy that was struck down by the Supreme Court, which is an actual policy that has teeth, it has a directive, and yet it still stands in moratorium because Drew Farmer and the other city councilors refused to obey the Supreme Court and take away that policy and put it back to the way it was. So it happens that cities and counties sometimes will have policies, and this isn't even a policy or an ordinance, it's a proclamation, it has no teeth. But cities and counties sometimes will go against state and federal law because they're making a point based on what their citizens believe. And John and Drew, you know that if this went to the voters, this would pass gloriously the same way that 60% of the people in this county voted for Trump. Illegal aliens are criminal by definition because they came to this country illegally. We are a warm, welcoming country to every single immigrant who wants to come here legally. Anyone who sneaks across the border should be punished. And it's not the job of law enforcement to keep us safe. It is the job of law enforcement to protect our rights. And these people are violating the rights of the citizens here by taking away money of the resources and law enforcement resources especially that we all of us citizens depend on. Pass this proclamation. It's been done before. It has no teeth. It's just symbolic, and it's the wave of the future. That's what's coming our way anyway, so we might as well be at the tip of the curve. Thank you, Rod, for presenting this. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Rob. Abigail Bach.
Abigail Bach, Coos Bay. Good morning, gentlemen. Upon reading the proclamation submitted by Commissioner Taylor regarding ICE detainer requests, I have several concerns. I do hear how Commissioner Taylor has framed the proclamation in this meeting, but as a retired copy editor, I don't believe the actual text entirely supports that framing. So I'm going to go ahead with my initially planned comments. The proclamation seeks to align Coos County law enforcement with federal immigration policy as opposed to state immigration policy in the matter of ICE detainer requests. But sheriff's deputies are state sworn officers, not federal officers, and therefore are under oath to uphold and enforce state law. The proclamation would potentially require Coos County deputies to violate state law, as the sheriff said, which would be placing them in an invidious position. Commissioner Farmer spoke to this question as well. The Oregon Sanctuary Promise Act of 2021 explicitly prohibits state and local law enforcement from participating in immigration enforcement without a judicial warrant. The act specifically mentions detainer requests, which, as the proclamation acknowledges, are voluntary and not binding. Little background here, ICE typically operates under ICE warrants, not judicial warrants, barring exceptional circumstances. ICE warrants authorize agents to detain people specifically named in the warrant, but they do not allow agents to enter privately owned property. Under the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, agents can enter property only if they have obtained a judicial warrant when reviewed and signed by a judge. Many ICE detentions do not meet this threshold. I have a concern about how the people alluded to in the proclamation come to be detained. It seemed as though Commissioner Taylor was trying to imply that these would be people who were detained in the course of the Sheriff's Department's criminal prosecutions, but it doesn't address people who are detained by ICE or through an ICE operation. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen agents engaged in immigration raids illegally enter private premises in search of people to detain in violation of the Fourth Amendment. We've seen law enforcement agencies other than ICE and not trained in ICE procedures involved in these raids, right up to and including the U.S. Secret Service. We've seen collateral, oh, I'm done? Oh my gosh, okay.
3 minutes flies.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I kept editing, my fault. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. John Brimhall.
Thank you. I know how you all look forward to hearing from me. My name's John Brimhall.
Thanks, John.
Live in Myrtle Point. I want to thank some of you here that have asked me to come and speak on your behalf.
John, you're talking to us.
What?
You're talking to us. Look this way.
Okay.
You got it?
Got it.
Thank you.
Now, good. Now, not only some of these in the crowd, but some of them and a lot of people in Coos County have asked me to speak on different things here today, several of them. But as far as what I call the bleeding hearts of the illegal criminal element, people coming across the border, please understand that I am a lot like Trump. I don't back up, I give no quarter. And if these people are released into the community at Coos County, there is already steps in place to take care of them. We're not going to have our citizens raped and murdered. It's not going to happen. If certain elements want to stand in the way of ICE, they will be considered the same as the criminal illegal aliens, and they will be accountable. There's no question about that. Now, question for Commissioner Farmer.
Yeah.
You had talked about what we would, ratifications. Now,
Yep.
is the county, is the state willing to lose all federal funding because they want to stand in the way of Tom Holman? Now, I'm in the process right now of collecting donations, and the county's willing to, is very much encouraged to step forward for 10,000 handcuffs to be sent to Holman. As I said, anyone standing in the way of Trump and Holman's agenda to clear this matter up and make our county and state and government all across America safe will be held to strict accountability. We're done. Now, I don't want to hear from anybody the BS that has, all these people, these good people have been tried to be brainwashed. It's not happening. that because we voted down several levies, that gotta let the criminals out. That's nonsense. The first levy, I went personally up to the jail and there were 78 bed spaces available.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Very much. David Jennings. Oh. David, hold on for a minute. The sheriff has the word.
Sorry, Dave. Just a quick point of clarification. Nobody's standing in the way of ICE. If they come in and do their job, that's fine. I just can't go with them on raids. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
David Jennings.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is David Jennings. I live in Coquille. One of the things that I wanted to mention is there is a 1997 United States Supreme Court case, Prince versus United States, that I think is relevant here. And I think it's very interesting because you have kind of a flip-flop in some ways of what, compared to what you have here. In that particular case, two sheriffs objected to enforcing a part of the Brady Act that was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Clinton, where they were told to conduct background checks. And they asserted that, federal law could not order law enforcement, at least in most cases, to enforce federal law if they did not wish to do so. And the Supreme Court, in a split decision with the conservatives upholding the sheriff's position on a 5-4 vote, basically agreed with the sheriffs and said that we have dual sovereignty in the United States, which sounds kind of like gobbledygook. What it means is, in a federal system, the state has to have certain sovereign power, and they believe that part of the 10th Amendment required this power was the power to direct law enforcement. Now, again, it's possible that this could change, but at the same time, I would say at this point that that's probably the ruling set of law that should guide us. Now, as a practical matter, I think that people that are in favor of massive federal ability to control local law enforcement might want to consider what would happen if at some point in the distant future you had a president and a Congress that passed some fairly objectionable firearms regulations, and for instance, say registration or maybe just some other factor, and that basically required local law enforcement to go out and enforce firearms regulations and laws that were totally unacceptable to the community and which the law enforcement didn't wish to do. In any case, at least the way this law reads at this time, there is considerable control of local law enforcement by state and local government, which I think is appropriate. If you had a case where you objected to something, conceivably some other agency like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms could start issuing detainer warrants or detainers and asking the sheriff to lock those people up in the jail. And that's a second thing. If you're going to have these kinds of warrants or detainers, I'm totally uncomfortable, and I would think that anybody that thought about it would be very uncomfortable with that. I don't like the idea of some bureaucrat being able to issue an order to law enforcement or to the jail that you have to lock somebody up. So at a minimum, if you're going to change something in this area, I think it absolutely has to be a change where it has to be a judge that is the one that is signing these detainers. We're supposed to be a government of laws, not of men. All too often we're not, but the basic reality, judges are there to make those kind of decisions, and I think we should have some trust in them. I don't like the idea of some federal employee just signing something that locks a citizen up who is not a judge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Tom Brown. Morning, Tom.
Morning. Tom Brown, Coos County. I think they broke the law coming over our border illegally. I think it's unconstitutional for what they've done. They've invaded our country. I think it's already been declared that these governors that are aiding and abetting are going to be held responsible. I think our constitutional should, our sheriff should uphold our federal constitution over the state constitution, and that's just my opinion. I don't know all the laws and facts on that, but to me, it makes sense that our federal constitution should be upheld over the state constitution. They're here illegally. They broke the law coming into our country. A lot of them are dealing dope, fentanyl, that's killing our children. A lot of them are trafficking children and women. I mean, what part do we want to, I mean, is that what we want for our communities? I'm not saying they're all bad. There are good ones, but they came over, they broke the law coming in. There's a right way in that needs to be fixed, obviously. So let's fix the right way of coming in so they don't have to break the law to come in. But when we just allow them to come in like that, it destroys everything we've built. All of our safety nets for we the people that we've paid into our whole lives, our families have paid into our whole lives, our welfare and food stamps and all that stuff, they are capitalizing on for being here illegal. How is that right? You know? I'm not saying they're bad people, but they are a different culture. You know, I've worked with them for, you know, probably 10 years at Continental Floral Greens, and, you know, they're good people, but they got a totally different culture than us. They see things a lot different than us. If they ain't willing to adapt to our culture, and they just want to push their culture, which is a lot different than ours, from what I've seen. I think, I think our sheriff, I think we should get ahead of this and arrest them. I think they should be arrested and deported. Maybe something worked out, go back to Mexico, wait in Mexico and...
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Dennis Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dennis Smith. I'm an elder at First Presbyterian Church in North Bend. I've been living here in Coos County since I retired 4 years ago, although my family often visited my parents when they were living here in Coquille up on Fairview Road. The years before they passed on, they were longtime residents. I served for 43 years as a mission worker of the Presbyterian Church USA in Latin America. The last decade of that service was based in Buenos Aires as regional liaison for South America, and prior to that I was based in Guatemala. And because I'm a qualified simultaneous interpreter and translator, I have often been able to provide language services to both SWAC and the Equity Coalition here in their engagement with Spanish-speaking neighbors in our community. I'm not a member of any political party, and having read the proposed proclamation, I oppose it because I believe that it would make us all accomplices in the imposition of a regime of fear in Coos County, especially among the Spanish-speaking population. We're already seeing law-abiding, tax-paying members of our community whose mother tongue is Spanish responding with fear to this and similar proclamations. Many no longer feel free to work, go to school, participate in a faith community, seek health care, feel free to report suspected criminal behavior, or in case of emergency request the assistance and protection of our local authorities or first responders. I certainly agree that U.S. immigration policy is in urgent need of bipartisan reform, and I would hope that that could be addressed creatively, securely, and humanely by Congress, recognizing that in today's troubled world, all nation states have the right to establish secure borders, but also recognizing that seeking asylum is a fundamental human right. As a follower of Jesus, my beliefs and actions are rooted in the oldest and most basic teachings of the Judeo-Christian tradition. If you love God, you show that love by caring for the most vulnerable members of your community. And in the Old Testament, that means caring for widows and orphans and the strangers living in your midst. In the New Testament, Jesus expressed that as loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and loving your neighbors as ourselves. This proclamation promotes fear, not public safety, and I urge you not to pass it.
Okay, next, Nancy.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Brown. I live in Coos County, and I am for this proclamation and stuff. And I want to say I don't believe everybody that has come over is bad. I don't believe all the Hispanics or whatever. The people I want to get out of here are the MS-13, the people dealing the drugs, killing our friends and family with the fentanyl. I don't know all the answers. I just know a couple things that I believe, and this is my opinion. And I know that illegal aliens have sent $56 billion in cash to their home countries last year alone. That's after we have given their children free education, free lunches, and free medical care on our systems that we pay for. And I believe that we just need to do something. I don't know where to start. I don't like all this division. I don't even never believe anybody ever told me that. I don't believe I was asked if it was a sanctuary state or not. I don't know what kind of BS all this is, because I don't believe in our governor at all. I believe they're trying to ruin Oregon. But I just wanted everybody to know, I'm not against the Hispanic people. I'm against the people that are coming over, that are killing our kids, raping our women, doing all this human trafficking, and it's not all them. It's people on our side of the border too. And so I just want everybody to know that. Thank you.
And Susan Foreman.
I live in Coos Bay, Susan Foreman. I'm here to speak in support of our sanctuary laws and the sanctuary promise. I don't believe which states that it's not the job of local law enforcement to enforce or participate in the enforcement of immigration laws. Not only do we not have the resources to do that, I don't believe that it's in the interest of our population. I think that the sanctuary laws were passed to protect the civil rights of the population of the state of Oregon, and for the county commissioners to speak, to publish a proclamation, which is somewhat of a political statement counter to the laws of this state, which were passed to protect the civil rights and the safety of our population. It sends a negative message to not only the Hispanic community, but all of those that live here, that our state is not going to be able to, that the opinion of this county is that those civil rights are not paramount of paramount importance. I find the timing of this proclamation to be particularly egregious given the recent federal laws, that the federal Laken-Riley Act that was passed last week, where people can be detained without due process, detained and deported, or in danger of being deported under suspicion when they haven't been actually convicted of a crime, and detained without right to hearing. I know that's not what the proclamation says, but it is a detention for the county to say that our law enforcement should support ICE detentions and federal law at any cost. I think that sets a dangerous precedent, and I don't find it at all appropriate.
All right, now that concludes the 5 people that were for and the 5 that were against the proclamation. And we have yet to deal with a concern that council has.
And I can restate that concern more
And
concisely.
please do, because I'm puzzled how we're going to do this fairly. Try to make the process fair.
Well, I have a
so far.
suggestion, but I would like to say the issue is a public meetings law issue. So as I said, public meetings law does not provide the public with the right to participate or to provide public testimony or public comment. So if we don't make that available, no one has the option to do that, and we're all square with public meetings law. But once we open the door to public testimony, then we have an obligation under the newly enacted regulations from OGEC to provide an opportunity for folks who are participating digitally. So if we are going to allow public testimony in the room, we have to provide some form of public testimony digitally if we're making it available. So now, format, that's up to you. It's up to the board's discretion to see how you want to accommodate that. I mean, I wonder if you just, get the first 5 people who raise their hand online or in the chat and
I have an idea. I want to hear from Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this is really not a huge issue. There was only the one raised hand with Rob. He had his chance to speak. We've only had one other hand raised here. Oh, now there's 2. It looks like the flood is going. Looks like we've got actually 3 new ones that do want to speak. So it does seem like people online should have an opportunity. However, there is a little bit of a conflict with the ground rules that were set up at the beginning of this.
Well, and I apologize for that. What I'd like to do, what I'd like to suggest is that Vanessa, if you would wait until I'm done, would come forward before the screen, and who from your side, Abigail, do you want to come forward before the screen, and each of you pick one person that,
I don't know if they're for or against. How do we know?
well, you'll recognize them, I'm pretty sure. And if they aren't, then we'll...
Well, so maybe it would be helpful to just announce the names.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we could do that. So the 3 hands that are up right now is Rayleigh Cousins, Chris Castleman, and somebody going by Playa del Sol. So
let's just do this. Why don't we hear from Rhea and Chris?
Let's hear from Rayleigh and Chris then, according to the chair.
Yes, sounds
Okay.
great.
Yeah, hi. I'm Rayleigh Cousins. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Rayleigh Cousins. I've lived here for over 50 years. This proclamation, the first thing that stuck out to me was like seriousness of crime wasn't even mentioned. And then after hearing the sheriff speak and the district attorney and the county lawyer, I was thinking, yes, there's many reasons not to go with this. I don't think that this was very well written. Hearing Abigail Bach talk, I know she's an editor and she looked at it very closely, and it is not a well-written law. And I did hear about the fear. I think it does promote a lot of fear. And I am a big supporter of the Sheriff's Department. And I want to make that clear that I think he's doing a very good job, as is the Sheriff's Department overall. And the best thing that we could do is pass the police levy, and that would be a big plus for our county and for our sheriff and for our public safety. I mean, there's things that we can do, and this is not the way to do it, in my opinion. So I am not for this proclamation, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then Chris.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. I just don't understand this process. I mean, you're kind of acting like a tyrant, John, or maybe just a turd. I don't really understand why you're getting to pick and choose who gets to speak. If people come to this meeting, they take the time out of their day to listen online or attend in person, they should have the opportunity to speak on an issue. It's ridiculous to have Danessa and Abigail choose based on a name what position somebody might hold on an issue. There's also more than two positions on an issue. Somebody could be neutral. Anyways, so I'll yield my time to Playa, or whatever the other third person's name was online, because I have the right to speak as well. So I would hope that you would give them that opportunity. Thank you, John.
Thank you. If Playa wants to come in, you can have the rest of Chris's time.
Okay. Hi, my name is Monique, and I'm a longtime resident of Coos County. I personally know lots of families that have been here for a long time, who are honest and hardworking, who just, I know Coos County is a very tight-knit community and everything, and thankfully, we do not face the issues that the rest of the country is facing with immigration. Thankfully, we do not have a lot of MS-13 members. We don't have a lot of human traffickers going on here, even though that is an issue elsewhere. We are blessed that that is not predominant in this area. And so therefore, I strongly oppose that, because most of the people in this community are hardworking, have been living here for 10, 15, 20 years, have not had any legal issues, have been paying their taxes through I-10 this whole time. And it would be wrong to pass this. And of course, the state already prohibits that through law. And I know somebody did mention that, we would face losing federal funding. Well, federal funding is already in the air, so we don't even know if we're going to lose that anyway. So I just think we need to oppose this, because it's very inhumane and the state law prohibits it. And that's what I have to say.
All right, thank you, everyone. That concludes public input. Now, I think I kind of got things out of order, but would you state your motion to proclamation?
Yes, I will. I move, Mr. Chair, to sign and file the attached proclamation regarding ICE detainer requests.
I'll second it for the vote.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the commissioners?
I'll just mention, Constitution was brought up a lot. It is federal. We should follow the Constitution. A federal court found that following this aspect would violate the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. The sanctuary laws in Oregon are from 1987. They've been there almost 40 years. They've been challenged multiple times, and each time it's been upheld, even to the federal level, and even finding that it is supported by the Fourth Amendment. So I understand the concern. I agree with following the Constitution. Constitution says, until challenged again, that Oregon's way of doing things stands. So just to make sure we got that out there.
Okay. Bobby, would you reread the motion as Mr. Taylor just stated it? Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to the motion, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. The motion is opposed, is not approved. With that, we had a long meeting, but we can stand for a few more minutes. We have some more public comment for those who didn't want to talk about the ICE proclamation. The floor is still yours.
Oh,
pardon me.
Mr. Chair.
The consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent
Thank
calendar.
you.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent calendar. Thank you, Bobby. All right. Phil Thompson, you had something to say, I believe. Now we're done with ICE.
I can talk on public comments, can I?
Oh, you can.
Talk about whatever you want to, Phil.
Okay.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay. I'm not going to get into the legalities and stuff, but my problem is these resolutions and proclamations that pass here and try to overrule state law or whatever. This has happened just recently that two commissioners, one of them is still here, I'm not going to name him before, they wanted to, the mask law or mandate that came down from the state, they wanted the right to overrule that. And they had quite a bit of deal here. And some of the people for, I think, health and wellness told them they were ignorant. And a few other things. John, I'm going to separate you two. You guys are not involved. But I'm still going to name nobody.
Very subtle, Phil.
So anyway, now we got the proclamation of this, and to me that proclamation is saying overrule the state law. Same way the resolution was going to overrule the state mandate. That's a bunch of crap. We live until the laws are changed. We should live what the law says. I'm not saying nothing about the sheriff or anybody else. Vote your conscience and everything else. But me, I think we should go by the state law on anything, unless you can get it changed. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. And John Brittenhall, you wanted to talk about something other than the ICE proclamation. Again, you're limited to 3 minutes.
My name's John Brimhall from Myrtle Point, and the last meeting, last month, I brought up about the offensive littering on all along our highways. I would like to come forward with some pictures to pass around, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Those pictures I passed around to the crowd earlier. Those are of the white spot right below Adam Mill on the power side. One group of people that had dumped the offensive littering off. Now, I talked to several people, several DOT workers sitting in their pickup yesterday having lunch. Those people were quite upset about this offensive littering simply because they said they can't even step out of their vehicles in any wide spots, to speak of not just the Powers Highway, but all over Coos County, in the fear of stepping on needles or human feces. Now, I don't know, I'm going to ask you as county commissioners, what steps did you take to ensure the cleanup of these roadways since I talked to you, if any?
This is for public comment. We'll respond to you privately if each commissioner wishes to do that. This is not a time.
Okay, now.
Thank you. We appreciate your concern.
Okay, well, it's not just my concern, it's for all the good people in Coos County. We do not want our children or grandchildren stepping out and stepping into this mess. We have the biggest problem of anybody in the whole country of garbage, and I can prove that. A 6,200-mile run that I made here as a passenger up through British Columbia and the Yukon Territories, I never saw one piece of garbage. Now, if this is allowed to exist, what's going to happen is, and it's already happening, these white trash people dumping this garbage, they've got children riding in their vehicles, and they're saying it's okay. The children can't help it. They grew up thinking it's okay to throw out waste of all kinds. Now, I don't come to you, county commissioners, with a problem unless I have a solution. I don't think a 60-day time frame for this to be taken care of is unreasonable. President Trump has done amazing things all across the United States in a few days. Now,
Thank you, John.
okay, I expect results. Thank you.
And Tim Pierce.
Wasn't a request.
Good morning or afternoon or what? Oh, it is afternoon. Tim Pierce, Bandon, Oregon. First thing, I'd like to mention something to Commissioner Farmer. You talked about these people that are here illegally, just trying to earn a living and all that other stuff. Yep. You can say the exact same thing about bank robbers, carjackers, burglars, all these people. All they're trying to do is improve their financial lot in life illegally. Yeah. Now, I just point that out so to straighten you out. I hate hearing that. Every time I hear that, to me, it's like a dog whistle. It's like, whoa, lie. But another thing we want to talk about, everybody talks about illegals. This isn't about the ICE thing. I used to own a junk store. You guys call them antique stores. There was a gal there in Coos Bay, North Bend, who was here illegally from Canada. She even owned a house that she bought from the stuff that she gathered up. She got lucky one day and bought a piece of art that turned out to be worth a lot of money, and she bought a house right in North Bend overlooking the bay. Right? One day I had to explain to a bunch of people that every single solitary thing she had belonged to other people because she was not supposed to be there at the yard sales, estate sales, or whatever to buy that. Those things all belong to other people. And yet, one last thing. This happens about your sobering thing. Gots to have a name. Suggestion. Steve Fontaine. Why did I pick that name? He died drunk driving in an Austin Healey. Because it's a wake-up call. He's a local name. Maybe people will connect with this. It's the part that people don't talk about, Steve. Steve had some problems. He had some devils, I want to say. And he had some problems with his life. And it's sad, but he died drunk driving, and I think that's something people should understand.
To remember that this isn't the same brand of benign organic immigration like decades ago. The NGOs and this alphabet mafia of agencies are facilitating the importation of, prisons that are being emptied out, murderers and rapists and bad people as an instrument of societal sabotage. And this is very different, and for a few reasons, there's zero chance to stop it, and the surgical nature of the apprehensions so far show that through Space Force, our 5th military branch, and Starlink, and perhaps through the cell phones, they know where all these people are. And when the dust settles from this chapter, everybody is going to be happy, including the hardcore left. As my grandmother would say, gonna make nice for them against their will. Everyone on the planet ultimately is gonna be very happy by this time next year. Okay, and as I suspected regarding the campground thing, I've seen this movie a dozen times. I'm from California. We were placated. Oh, we're in the early stages of deliberation. We're not gonna do anything. We're gonna do public outreach. And then it's the double entendre, ADD, already done deal. And I understand you've gone ahead purchasing the property. And, something's wrong when my level of outreach is more extensive than yours. And give or take a couple, I've asked 40 people in the neighborhood whether they want the campground. And I swear to you, not one of them was for it. Now, if you do legitimate public outreach and the people in the neighborhood affected by it are for it, I will go away. I might do a little I told you so a couple of times over the years about accidents. But, you know, the traffic study law, if I'm not mistaken, requires the threshold is 400 cars in 24 hours or more. I don't need a traffic study. I mean, this is like putting a campground on Shingle House Road. I mean, it's like common sense. It's inherently a dangerous road. So I've generated a cease and desist. And the main reason is because this, like all the sustainable development, land use crap, like the closing of the dunes, like the windmills, it was all done outside the people's purview, which is diametrically opposed to our Constitution in both word and spirit. You've manufactured, you've purchased a manufactured consent outside the people's purview, and it's completely unconstitutional.
We have.
You'll never hear from me about it again.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. I apologize. Chris, you want to come on next?
Online? Can you hear me?
Oh, maybe it's the bar. Why don't we go to Rod, see if you can park?
Is Rob?
The sound is coming from Playa del Sol and is not muted.
What is it?
Isn't muted. There we go.
Oh,
there we go.
Thank you. Okay, Chris.
Okay, I'm Chris Castleman from Coos County. I'm wondering why we haven't made any progress on solving the crime issue or the budgeting problems that are inherent with the crime issue. So obviously we can't solve it overnight, but it's just concerning to me that we're now in February. Every month that goes by, every week, every day, that we're not trying to find a solution to this is a big problem. So I'd like for you guys to form some sort of a task force or a committee so the community can bring their solutions forward and be more involved in this process. I'd like to have more agenda items and meetings where we're discussing what we can do as a county to stop the crime crisis. And if it's money that we need, then addressing the budgetary problems that come with that. So I just don't understand. I've been at this for over a year now, begging you guys, pleading with you to have some more community involvement because you constantly claim that you're out of options, out of solutions, yet you do almost zero public engagement, public involvement to try and come up with actual, real, obtainable solutions to these issues. So I know you've heard it from me over and over again. I'm turning into a Jim Bennett, but you know, there are constantly crimes being committed in our community. And worse than that, now they're being dropped off in Coquille because they're being booked and released and then put onto the streets in Coquille, and that's harming the community in Coquille disproportionately. So I would really like to see some progress on this. Unfortunately, I doubt you're going to do anything, but that's what elections are for. So thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I'll see you around.
Thank you. Rob Taylor. Rob? Oh, we must have lost him. And Nancy, I think you had something more to say.
I just have a couple of points. Nancy Brown, Coos County. So I just want to touch on something. I know we have a meeting this Thursday for this urban renewal that they're trying to get us on the hook for $65,000 a year or some. I don't even know all of it. I know there's a big meeting coming up to keep on pushing. North Bend's going to keep on pushing this nonsense. I don't even know why we have an urban renewal. They say it's to beautify our county, blah, blah, blah. When nobody wants to come here because nobody can, because they get robbed, they get stole from, you can't park your car, you know what I mean? And so I just want everybody to be aware of that urban renewal that they're trying to push through, that they're going to hold us citizens of this county on the hook for $65,000 a year. And then once before, I had asked about an election board, if we could cross any of those or maybe have any discussions about an election board or election integrity or something like that. I know I brought it up before, so maybe it was just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, well, I think that concludes all but commissioners' comments.
Who wants to go first?
I'm not going to do anything today, so you can go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just point out that it's not accurate. We're not doing anything to address the budget. I don't know what other folks are working on, but to offset law enforcement, I've been in contact with the FBI and other agencies regarding the foreign terrorist organization designation. That's why I'm checking every day to see if they've been listed yet, so we can see what federal resources we can get to offset our local resources. Talked with the Port Project. Folks may not know, but part of the shoal out there is jeopardizing one of the businesses. We can't afford to lose it. So Merkley and Valhoyle are working with the Army Corps of Engineers to compel them to perform quicker so that we don't lose more revenue. Yesterday, I got on the phone with some folks from the state regarding the Elliott State Forest. They're going to be cutting 17 million board feet?
17.
Yeah, but no one had talked to them about what they're going to do when they do the carbon credit part, about what money we're going to get. So I've got that conversation going now too. It's not ideal, but if nobody talks to them to make sure we get money, I told them if they do business here, we need to get a cut so that we don't have to raise our taxes on people. Working with SWAC about getting interns into some of these systems. Somebody mentioned it at a past meeting so that we offset labor again. And I'm looking into our own urban renewal district. That's going to start a firestorm, I know, but I don't see the purpose for ours. So I'll be coming back with proposals on how to use the funds and probably liquidate our own URA, because I can't find a reason for it, and the port didn't have an idea either.
And
Okay.
Mr. Taylor.
We've had quite a few things transpire in the last couple of weeks since our last meeting here, and we're all mostly aware of those. I'm encouraged with the direction that our nation is headed, and I'm encouraged for the prospects for Coos County based on that. I have reached out to the administration, particularly, well, on a couple of topics, but only one I'm going to talk about today, and that is I have pleaded with the administration to intervene through the Interior Secretary on our behalf regarding the ONC timber harvest. And the majority of the problems, in fact, almost all of the problems that we experience here in Coos County have their origin outside of Coos County. And this is one of the biggest ones. And not to beat a dead horse in the room, but I know there are a couple of faces that may not have heard this before, that 2 million acres of ONC lands stretching from the Washington border to the California border grows at a rate of 1.2 billion board feet every single year. Every year, 1.2 billion board feet is added to those lands through growth. Last year, the Forest Service and BLM harvested just over 200 million board feet off those lands. And so I'm hopeful that that my outcry to the administration will yield some positive results. I know that they have prioritization on petroleum right now and natural gas, and pursuing the drill baby drill philosophy, and that is a larger driver or a more broad driver economically in the nation than are the BOC lands. However, they're very important to us. And so rather than the $1.2 million that we got last year, I would like to see us returned to the $25 million a year that we used to receive in Coos County. And if we had an administration that enforced compliance with the 1937 ONC Act, that's what we would have. We would have a minimum of 500 million board feet harvested off those lands annually, as is specified in the 1937 Act. And I know Commissioner Sweet hates it when I say this, but I believe that that's our greatest avenue toward restored economic viability here in Coos County. And, you know, I appreciate what Commissioner Farmer said in response to public comment. Just because you haven't seen a result doesn't mean that we're not working on it. So our potential resources are very limited. The options are few, but we are constantly exploring for new ones. I've been in touch with the State Department of Corrections. We're contacting Multnomah County, and that's the only county in the state that apparently is having jail capacity problems. But the idea is, if we can find another agency to rent jail space to, perhaps we can come back to where we could actually reopen that second pod. It's sort of a stretch, but we have to look for everything, and that's what we're doing. So I think that's about. One other thing, just to clarify something that Nancy said a few minutes ago regarding the urban renewal district proposal that the city of North Bend is trying to advance. There is a meeting Thursday night in the North Bend City Council chambers. It's a meeting of the North Bend School Board, and the city of North Bend needs to find another taxing district to support their urban renewal proposal in order to advance it. They came before this body in December, pardon me, or it might have actually been November, I'm not sure. December. And they laid their proposal out for us, and Commissioner Sweet, myself, Commissioner Main at the time, we voted unanimously in opposition to our endorsement. We declined to endorse the URA proposal that they were trying to advance. And the reason is because we were fresh off of having to cut all of the deputies that ran the second pod in the jail, plus some patrol, plus some other personnel in the county. We are in no position to absorb a $65,000 annual loss to the county's general fund. We're just not. So it's real simple, and if you agree with that position that we took here back in December, then I would encourage you to think about attending that school board meeting in North Bend on Thursday night. I think is it at 6? Does anybody know? 6 o'clock. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll break my promise. I'll have a comment or two. And I think the biggest and the most important issue is what Chris said, that finding a way to adequately fund our county's operations. The revenue flows we get from property taxes to have not gone up to keep in a manner that keeps pace with the cost of inflation, the cost of doing business. I'm working at the state level to find some ways to remedy that. I hope that we can find a way through increased harvest of federal timberlands. I don't know if anyone's worked any harder on on that, either federal lands or state lands, than I have. But what I'm saying is that we can't totally hang our hats on that possibility. We've been looking at that for 40 years to no avail. So we continue to do that, continue to encourage greater harvest state and federal forests on a sustainable basis. But at the same time, we can't let that close our eyes to the possibility and the need of developing other sources of revenue. And with that, we are, well, before that, thank you so much for hanging in here. This is a long day. I think we kind of demonstrated that we can all have a civil discourse, and I'm proud of you all, of us all, for doing that today and coming to a decision. Thank you. We are adjourned.